Most beginners think pawns are just there to protect all their other pieces, but how valuable are they really? Stick around to the end to see just how powerful a pawn can become. Strategic, tactical, calculated. This is 1e4 mate. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to 1e4 Mate. This is episode 3 of the How to Play Chess series for beginners. Today we're going to be going over the pawn and how it moves and captures. If you missed the last video, go check it out on 10 tactics every beginner should know. And make sure you go subscribe to catch all the future videos for the rest of the series. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so the first thing we're covering is how the pawn moves. So all these pawns move forward. The white's pawns are going this way, black's pawns are going this way. And so the way the pawn moves is simple. It just goes forward. So you notice it went forward 2 squares here. That's because it's the pawn's opening move. It's the first time this pawn has been moved. So you'll see black responds by opening 2. Now, a normal pawn move, from here on out, these pawns can only move forward 1. So on the opening move, you have the option to go forward 2, like what happened, or just 1. So this pawn's only going to go forward 1, and this pawn chooses 2. So if you see this arrow here, that is how a pawn attacks and captures. When one pawn is going to capture another pawn or any other piece, it's going to capture diagonally. And so now this white pawn has control over these 2 squares. So this is an example of a move that you shouldn't make. You shouldn't develop your knight directly in front of a diagonal pawn because you're going to lose your knight. Now black's pawn is going to recapture. Now if you notice here, we have 2 pawns stacked up on each other like that. This is what's known as doubled pawns. This is considered a weakness. It's something that black is going to be able to exploit and target throughout the game. What makes these even worse is that you'll notice they're isolated. It doesn't have any other pawns supporting it. Double isolated pawns is a huge weakness, and if your opponent gets them, they're a big target. So moving on, we're just going to develop some pieces, and here we castle. You see these pawns that are highlighted are a great line of defense for your king, and it can be hard for your opponent to attack your king now that it's safe behind these pawns. Moving on here, we see that this pawn was able to move up, and since it attacks diagonally, it wins a tempo on this bishop. If you haven't seen my previous video, 10 tactics every beginner should know, that is one of the tactics I cover in that video. So it's essentially how you can win a free move, because now white has to waste time moving its bishop back. So black pushes its pawn. Since this pawn moved forward 2 spaces and it lands next to this pawn is able to capture it as if it had only moved forward 1. So we keep developing. We're blocking. Bishop takes. Bring out the queen. Take the free knight. Trade queens. So here is something you don't want to do as white. Not necessarily the queen trade. The queen trade is fine. But the queen trade in this position is bad because it gave black the opportunity to undouble its pawns. Like I said earlier, it was a weakness. Now it's not as bad. As they move down the board, they're able to support each other. So we give a check with the rook. The king steps out of the way. Some more developing. We trade rooks. Take the rook, threaten the bishop. So we keep moving here, and the pawn is able to recapture. We'll slide the rook over, bring the king up, get the rook off the board, get rid of the knight. We see the pawn can capture the knight. This is what's called a pawn chain. When I mentioned pawn structure before, this is a very good one to have, especially in the middle game when there's a bunch of other pieces on the board. If you want to have a position that's very closed off so that your opponent's pieces can't get through, a strong pawn chain is very good. And we're going to see another use for it here in just a minute. Because as black's king wants to take these pawns so that they don't promote, it can't because it's defended. And it can't even get to this one because it's defended. So white can just barricade all of black's pawns. And black has to go all the way down here. And here, white has what's called a passed pawn. A passed pawn is any pawn that does not have a pawn on either side of it, in front of it, or diagonally, that can stop it on its way to promotion. And once black is all the way down here and can't catch our pawn anymore, then we can push it and promote. So here's the last thing I wanted to show you guys is how promotion works. Once your pawn reaches your opponent's back rank, and you make that last move, you have the option to promote to any of these pieces. Obviously, we're going to choose the queen because it's the most powerful, but you can also promote to a knight, rook, or bishop. So let's choose the queen. So that is the journey of the pawn. What most people see as an insignificant piece can turn into something as big as a queen. Make sure to tune in for the next video in about a day or two where we will cover the knight and how it moves and the power of the knight. If you enjoyed this video, go give it a like. If you like content like this and would like to see more of it in the future, please go subscribe. And remember, every move matters, so make yours count. I'll see you guys in the next video.